Hello, everybody.
Howdy there.
This is Anuj, and we are here with our audio panel. We're here with Mason and a special guest as well. If our panelists would like to introduce themselves, that would be awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mason Lieberman, and I am a composer and music and audio director in the game and anime industries.
And my name is Emmanuel Lagumbai, and I'm a sound designer in the game industry.
Awesome. Thank you for coming by. I know that this is a really cool surprise, having having Manuel on as well.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get started with the panel itself. So, if you could kind of talk a little bit about what you do in the industry, kind of projects you've worked on, that would be great.
So I'll start off really quickly. In addition to being a member of faculty over at IMGD for audio, as well as in Thornton for music and at Berklee College of Music for game scoring, I am a video game composer and music director. Some of the projects that I've most enjoyed contributing to in no particular order include things like Overwatch 2, Teamfight Tactics, League of Legends, Super Smash Bros., Pokemon, Beyblade, Ruby, Rising of the Shield Hero, on and on and on and on. I've gotten the joy of contributing as a composer, music director, recording artist, or featured soloist or music producer of some kind on, at this point, dozens and dozens of projects. Death Stranding, Batman Arkham Shadow, Star Wars Outlaws, Star Wars Visions, just a lot of fun stuff. Um,
Visions was awesome. I love that series.
oh, it's so good. Oh, audio is a little quiet on this side. That's because we're currently going through my recording setup, and we're going to adjust the microphone here to get the gain. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2,
There we
3.
go.
Now we should be a lot clearer.
How about me?
There we
Like,
go.
From,
That's
from my
awesome.
angle, is that good? Can you
Yeah.
guys hear me fine? Okay, cool. And I've done mostly video game stuff. I had a stint at Riot for about 4 years. So I was working on League of Legends on the skins team. I did stuff for like Ari's ASU, some skins like High Noon Mordekaiser, Star Nemesis Morgana, stuff like that. Uh, Before that, I did a couple of indie projects, and I also worked on a game like Torchlight 3. Currently, I'm working as a senior sound designer as a contractor for ArenaNet, working on Guild Wars 2, where I've done stuff for the last couple expansions, Genther Wilds and Visions of Eternity. I do a lot of, honestly, everything, so like ambiences, skills design, combat design, encounters, but I've probably been doing a lot more skills and encounter stuff recently for the sound design work there. I did technically write a couple tracks of music for them for
Yeah.
an event thing, so it was like a nice little chiptune section for their Super Adventure box that came out.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
we actually work at the same company
Yeah.
because we both work for a company called Interleave, which is an audio production company that
It's my
has
boss.
both. I am E-Man's boss. I was very particular that he had to do this, or he
Yes.
was
Yeah.
going
Of
to get
course. Of
fired.
course.
Um,
Yes.
something like that. It was
It
something
was a
like
quid
that.
pro
100%, yeah,
quo. It was
yeah.
you're getting fired if you
Yeah.
don't.
No, Mason's been fantastic there, and just happened to be in the area when he was doing this. I'm like, oh yeah, I can jump in. Why not?
Yeah, it seemed like a fun idea.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad of it. Visions of Eternity also like I that the soundscape of the maps has been like so good and like it's been so awesome.
Glad you've been enjoying
So
it. I'll definitely pass that to the ambience folks that did that.
What was your first Guild Wars 2 expansion that you worked on?
Genther Wilds, so the one that came out just right before this one.
Was Secrets of the Obscure before that?
yes,
They were working on it while I was onboarding, basically. So I technically touched that, but I didn't like add stuff to it.
I may have narrowly beat you to Guild Wars then, because I actually was a cello soloist on Secrets of the
That's
Obscure.
true. Then. That's true.
Very narrowly.
the soundtrack of like that game of that series is like I have like Tarir the Forgotten City just like in my on repeat because it's such a
Oh,
good
it's so good.
soundtrack.
Like that
Um,
entire team, McLean Deemer, the many composers who've come through on that franchise over the years, they're all fantastic.
yeah, I am just every time a new expansion comes out, I'm like, ooh, new music as well as like other
I'm very
content.
excited for the soundtrack for Guild Wars 3.
Yes,
Um, Can't say anything about it. I'm not involved, but I have heard some things and know who is doing it, and I'm very excited for that because it's going to be amazing.
That's honestly super exciting to hear as
Mm.
well.
Mm.
Awesome.
ArenaNet does not miss when it comes to music, that's for sure.
Oh, not at all. I'm just, I'm excited. I'm very excited. Um, so to begin, to get us started, I'd like to ask, what made you interested in working in these industries of like, Mason, you work in games and anime, Manuel, you work more in games. Like, what kind of got
Mhm.
your start? Because people start in very interesting ways in this industry sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, well, we all play video games as a way to like escape and to enjoy that and to
Mhm.
find that level of like inner peace, kind of, right? So there's
Yeah, we come
there's
to this place.
I know, yeah, we come to this place to do that. But no, there's a lot of things that really inspired me when I was playing video games growing up, right? So like I played, hilariously enough, I played Guild Wars in middle school, and I've been a fan of that franchise. League of Legends when I was in high school and all that stuff. Was a massive fan of that franchise, and all of those soundscapes, mostly the soundtracks for me at the time, were things that I held very close and dear to me. And it was one of those moments where I wanted to do what those that came before me had done for me, and got me out of those hard places and something to like feel inspired by. I wanted to try to be that for that next generation.
I really liked Super Smash Bros. And I was like, can I get a job working on Super Smash Bros? Um, and it turned out the answer was yes, kind of. And that was pretty much it.
That's a good like. I'm in a similar position of like I've played so many games growing up. Like I love this medium. I love and then like after working with games industry folks, I love games industry people. But there's some games where I'm like, if I work on this at some point, I'm gonna be very, very, very happy. I
Mhm.
think I chose USC because Outer Wilds is my favorite game, and
Yep.
it started over there. So I was
And
like,
Mobius, they're great. It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
really, really strong team.
awesome. Um, So for we this is our audience is mostly students who are kind of like trying to get their start. So more like starting with some career orientations. How do you make an audio portfolio stand out? What kind of skills, and I imagine this changes depending on what you're trying to go for, but what would you look for if you were a hiring manager? Um,
Mhm. So both of us are hiring managers. We hire
right.
audio people all the time. Um, and I would say for a student, I'm not expecting perfection. I'm not expecting you to know everything. I want you to be honest about where you are. I would say that the ability to self assess yourself accurately is a huge boon. But what I am always looking for in everything whenever I'm hiring from audio is a sense of perspective and an understanding of storytelling. I don't expect for all of your sounds to be right. I don't expect you to always know the correct way to create something. But it is my hope that when you look at something, if you look at an animation, you can understand where the sound should go. You can understand what the purpose is and what part of player agency we are emphasizing to try and bring forward the interactivity, the fun, the information that needs to be conveyed. Like, you can correctly analyze the material that you are doing. We can teach you to be better sound designers. It's pretty hard to teach someone to notice something that they are not capable of noticing. That's a much harder skill set. So that's usually what I'm looking for as a starting basis for students. But then obviously an ear towards quality, an ear towards like an ability to create something interesting, unique, anything that kind of gets me to stop for a moment and go like, oh, that's kind of sick. Like, that's immediately winning at the student level. Like, that is already above the standard. Just being able to perk someone's ear and get them to kind of clock in for a moment.
Yeah,
Yes, definitely.
to really add into that, it's just like Mason said at the points. Like there is a baseline. Like, can I put a sound in the right spot? That is like the absolute baseline. To me, the thing that really sticks out for a student is, can I make something out of nothing, and kind of like, can I make this feel that unique, emphasize different feeling that it's supposed to. That's not necessarily there, right? How do I explain that? So like if I have like a fireball, right? The most obvious thing is to put fire in the sound, right?
Yeah.
It has to feel whooshy and it has to feel bassy and it has to have like a fire crackle to it. That's like the baseline. Any student can do that. I think literally any student can grab a fire sound, make a fire sound, put it in the right spot, and that's that. But to emphasize what Mason said about storytelling, can you tell me where that fire magic is coming from? Like, is that coming from like an inner thing? Is that like maybe a chi magic? Is it coming from like the celestial stars? Is it giving me that feeling of like,
What
but
diegetic world building can you do
right,
while conveying the necessary information for gameplay purposes?
yeah,
That's one of the huge things that differentiates a competent sound designer from a brilliant sound designer.
right. Is it just fire, or is it fire with other elements in it that make it not that make it more unique?
Mm-hmm.
When I was playing Baldur's Gate 3, I when I was looking at like the Warlock, the Eldritch Blast, I was like, this sounds otherworldly. This sounds like a different suite than other things. And I was like, okay, they got it. They got the sound for this really good. And then I played
Well,
Warlock as my first class.
games that have magic systems, one of the first things that I always kind of clue into is, did the sound designer actually think about the origins of that magic, or were they just putting sparkles and whooshes and energy, and like, to them blue magic is the same as green magic, you know what I mean? Like, are they actually
Yes.
paying attention to the nature of what's going on here? And if so, what are they telling you about the world through the art that they are creating? And it is art at the end of the day.
Yeah, like when you were, I love magic sounds. That's probably the thing I would consider myself I specialize in the most. Is when you look at games like League of Legends or Guild Wars, right? It's like you have these specific classes and these specific champions and characters, these specific skin lines. They all have a very unique take on what that general thing should feel and be like. So taking that as a student and just taking that knowledge of like, hey, this is what people in the AAA's think about, like that'll help you set yourself apart. If you can like really try to emphasize the what's not on paper or what's not visually there, if that makes sense.
When I was playing the Visions of Eternity, I noticed I played Luminary, and I was like, Luminary's thing is like forging, and the sounds are like, you hear hammers.
Did
you
you
hear
do
like,
that?
I did that, yeah.
yeah, let's go. Yeah, I noticed. I was like, there we go. That's like, this is really good.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, like Amalgam was the same thing, right? It's like Luminary. The prompt was basically steampunk char meets holy magic. So that was kind of my take on it. But with like Amalgam, I also got to work on that one. And then for those that don't know, it's an engineer sound with like slime, water elements, and the idea is that these Asuran are controlling the slime energy and using that as like their power. So my whole take on it is like, what if I just made this like non-Newtonian fluids, and like the Asuran are using the tech to control the fluids by like synthesizers and stuff that we would do in the real world. So that was kind of my audio take on it, and it's just like, okay, you see this slime moving around. It's easy to make whoosh, like watery slime sounds. Like I could throw a gallon of water into a thing. I could just make a little bunch of whooshes. But how do I tell the story of like, okay, now this is a synth controlling that, right? So that's the kind of stuff that we would want to think about.
And like that really makes us, if students able to pick up on that, like that makes them really stand out as like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in my experience, and I say this not even as a college professor, but just as like a hiring manager, 99% of students coming out of college aren't there yet. And not to say that like they're not working hard, they're not skilled. It's just the nature of, even at the best program at the world, even at a program like USC, where the kids do have, in my experience, pretty good success rates. They're doing pretty well. They're landing at big prestigious companies. You are 4 years into your journey, and the people on your team are like 15 to 20 years into their journeys. And it's like, even if you are the greatest sound designer who ever lived, 4 years in, you are going to learn so much more in the 4 years after college than you did in the 4 years of college, because you're going to be doing so much more at the professional level on a day-to-day basis. Like, you're no longer splitting your time between the electives and between the non-audio classes, and like when you're doing it for a living and other people are reviewing your work constantly, you could turn in an assignment and maybe you get one round of feedback and then you're done. When you're working in industry, you could get reviewed on the same thing 50 times if they're being really ornery, and that may even be the right call. It might not be. It might be bad feedback, but it is possible that you could go 6-7 rounds on something and not bat an eye, just be like, yeah, no, this is normal. Like, there's just a back and forth dialogue that goes into this stuff, and that's part of what it means to be a collaborator.
And like that makes sense. It's just like, as students, there's so much else going on. I think you hit the nail on the head of like, you turn an assignment, that's the end of that assignment. You don't really go back to it. Versus like in the industry, you're like having now worked with audio teams in the industry, like there'll be a lot of revision like, oh, can we change this? Can we change this? Like it's multiple
So,
times.
a thing that I would articulate most of the time for the really good students, and this is not predictive of a good career, this is just predictive of the student, it's really good ingenuity on that first pass. Because I find that most students are a little bit too attached to their own work and their own creative, and they have difficulty taking the negative feedback. And so when you're a student, usually the highest performing student is the one who has the most good ideas just out of the box by default. Whereas when you're a professional, how good your ideas are on day one, I wouldn't say they never matter. Like, you should still have good stuff, but like, art is the revision process, art is the editing
Yeah.
process. And like, the thing that makes someone really good, I could care less. Like, as E-Man supervisor, E-Man could turn in the worst thing I've ever heard, but if I give him notes and then he turns it into the best thing I've ever heard, it doesn't matter where it started. What matters is where we finish it and where we get it. So,
Right.
like, it's always that revision process that is such an important part of this.
And how I respond to that feedback.
And
too,
how you
honestly,
respond to
yeah.
feedback. But, like, that's also, like, how you respond to feedback is an important part of being managed.
Yes.
How you give feedback is an important part of being a manager, because there are absolutely people who know how to give feedback and people who don't.
Mm-hmm.
And there are few things more annoying than receiving feedback from people who don't know how to actually give that, or where the line is, or frankly, what they're looking for.
It otherwise, like if you know how to receive like get feedback from somebody who knows how to give it, you're like, I have actionable things to do. I know where to go. There's a road ahead of me. Otherwise, like where am I going? This is a field.
Or we were just there last pass, and then now we're back at it.
No,
Huh?
it's one of the great things I will say of working with like a friend in this case. E-Man and I have been friends for a very long time.
8 years.
And so 8 years, over 8 years at this
Over,
point,
yeah.
like 8.5.
Yeah.
And you know, it is one of the things that makes your life easy as an audio director to know someone both for their talent, their chops, like their capacity. Like, I know by default before I've heard anything, oh yeah, E-Man's good at this. Like, I don't have to know what's in his mind. I know that he's going to get it right. And then being able to have that kind of a shorthand with the people you are working with, like, I don't feel like I have to be prescriptive when I give E-Man feedback. There is a huge difference between giving someone feedback and saying, hey, you need to bring up the highs on this, and you need to add an accent here, and you need to do this and this and this, and like having to solve the problem for them, as opposed to saying, hey, this isn't working, I want this, and then they will figure it out because they know how to solve the problem.
Right.
That second thing is ultimately the better solution, because you are relying on multiple people's creativity and instinct and not just on your own individual sense of self. And it leads to much better outcomes when you are not hyper prescriptive of insisting someone has to do it the way that you would do it.
That like it's game dev is such a like intensely cooperative and like team driven field that like that makes sense of just being able to kind of let somebody go, and also as a producer, like let somebody go so that you can go manage other things as a manager is very helpful rather than like having to kind of sit there and be like, I have to give a revision over and over again.
Yeah, not to say that that won't happen. Like you will be in scenarios where it's like this things has to be prescribed, right? Otherwise,
Oh yeah, sometimes that's
Yeah.
just the nature of it, and sometimes it's not clear. You know, sometimes you do genuinely have things, and it's not because the client doesn't know what they're doing. It really is just, hey, we're trying to do something we've never done before, and there aren't really references for this because we're trying to solve a novel problem. We're gonna explore, and we're gonna get it wrong. And that's part of game development, you know, failing fastly and iterating and not worrying about it is inherent to the process of making good games.
All this to say, it's way easier to do that when you have rapport and trust with the people you're working with.
Yeah,
Yes.
like, it's good to have solid people on your party, if you will.
Yeah. I feel that. I've been thankfully in games I have had like really good teams, but in other circumstances, like undergrad, I was like, this is not. I don't know if I can trust the people on this team right now.
It
I'd like to
helps that
ask.
as you get more and more professional experience, I wouldn't say by default it always works out in your favor, because like there are bad teams and there are places where you're not a good fit, but I would say that it's pretty rare that I've had an experience where I was like, oh man, this is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like by and large, I've felt really lucky for any participation in this community. Like I feel like all of the people I meet are always pretty amazing.
I could count that on one hand, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like I've been doing this for over 10 years now.
Yeah. And it's your boss.
Yeah, it's my boss. That's the word.
And he's right here on this call.
5.
Like very carefully trying to like, how do I say this politely when the person
Top 5
like,
worst experiences of game dev. All of them are in this call right now.
I'd like to ask a bit of a kind of like fun question, but who are your inspirations and heroes, and like who do you kind of like look up to?
Do you want to start, or you want me to?
Go for it.
All right, so I will say, actually for me, my composer hero, and this isn't necessarily my favorite composer, this is my composer hero. Though I will say, I love this composer, he's amazing. Kazuma Jinochi. And Kazuma is one of my heroes because he is the textbook definition of what I think work ethic and ego ought to look like for someone who has accomplished as much as he is. This is a guy who has, like, the Japanese Academy Award for Best Score working with Makoto Shinkai for Suzume. This is a guy who was the lead composer of the Halo franchise. This is a guy who has scored Iron Man, Batman, who's worked in Hollywood films, who's done, like, all of these incredible things. This is a guy who, like, by all definitions of the word, doesn't need the money. You know what I mean? Like, this is not the reason that he's motivated to work. He's already doing additional music for other composers. He'll assist Will Roget on Star Wars Outlaws. Even though he has worked on bigger games than Outlaws, he will work as an additional composer on Detective Pikachu under Henry Jackman or whatever. And it's because fundamentally, it's not about like a desperate hunt for money. It's not about like a need for more credits or something. Like, he's fine. He could not do another gig ever again, and he would still be a legend. It's because he knows that there are still things he can learn from working for other people, and he is constantly growing and refining his system and operating from a perspective of respect for the people around him. And I think that kind of like deference of ego, that kind of understanding of the value of your peers, that you can accomplish incredible things and still have something that you can learn from people who don't have as much experience as you. That is an attitude that I hope to maintain for my entire career. Like, I hope that I never become so pig-headed that I don't see the value of, like, working for other people or collaboration or, like, studying the things that other people do and finding ways to apply that and grow my understanding of art.
I think I saw something similar with the game Sea of Stars, very inspired by Chrono Trigger, and then I get an email. I kickstarted it. I get an email. It's like, yeah, Yatsunori Matsuda, the like composer of Chrono Trigger, is contributing tracks for this game, and I was like, oh my god! But like you said, like that is really cool to hear that like even despite being completely like legendary, like those are. I'm looking at. I looked at his website. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, Mitsuda's, you know, a cut above pretty much everyone in a lot of ways. It's like, you know, it's impossible not to write music, especially in a fantasy vein, and accidentally do, you know, the Mitsuda lick, if you will. It's impossible not to work it into your own stuff and then feel like, oh, I just ripped him off. It's impossible not to. He did everything first. Who are some of your heroes?
It's honestly really hard for me to like pinpoint down because I've had
Me.
well, it's Mason. Clearly, it's 100% Mason. No, but like to be totally frank, I've had a lot of folks that have inspired me throughout my entire career and all that. So it's really hard to just be like, this is the one person I look up to. There's a lot of people that I've like looked to for mentorship that have helped me,
Mm-hmm.
and have gotten me to where I am now, and like I'm grateful for every single one of those. So I wouldn't. It's hard for me to really like say this one or these five people, right, are who I consider an inspiration to this stuff. But there's a lot of folks that I worked with at Riot, and some folks that I work with now on at ArenaNet that are very still close to me that I truly feel inspired by. Um, just because of the way they handle things, like their demeanor towards this, like there's a level of humility, right? That's I think I'm seeing a trend here where it's like the more humble you are about stuff, the more people will want to gravitate.
Exceptions, but like I tend to really believe that like your career does correlate with human decency.
Yeah,
And like when you care about other people and you treat other people well, like they will care about you and they will treat you well and they will want to see you succeed. Like I don't think that this is a zero sum thing.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
I really do believe that like the community will come together to support you if you are someone who shows up for the community.
I would say especially so in this state of the industry right now.
Oh, gosh,
It's
yeah.
like or every other day you're hearing about something going on. But it's those folks that step up to them and reach out and that want to help out. I think are the ones that continue to inspire me still.
I mean, to use a story from your own personal side, I like. I would say at this point, I want to say north of 50% of the games industry has experienced a layoff in the last few years. Maybe even higher. Like I think it may be as high as like 2/3, 3/4 at this point. So
I've seen that
by and
number
large,
floating
everyone has been laid off at some point. And obviously, you can't control when that happens. You can't control why it happens. You can't control what the state of the industry is. But I think that it is very telling that some people, you get laid off and you can't find another opportunity because maybe, frankly, it was really good luck that you found the first one. And other people, a day goes by and they're in that next job already because everyone knew why you got hired in the first place. And E-Man, when you were impacted at Riot, you'd signed a contract and you already started at Guild Wars in under a week. Like, I think it speaks to your reputation and how much love people have for you that, like, a million people were calling the audio director at ArenaNet, like, no, get E-Man now. This is your chance. Like 30 different people had made calls on your behalf, including inside the company. And I think they were kind of just like, yeah, we need to meet this guy. What the hell is going on?
That was probably one of my the funniest questions came up was when I interviewed for that position. The first thing that was like, hey, so it sounds like you know a lot of people. That was like the first comment that happened in that interview. But it was a level of that, right? Like I'm very gracious that did happen because it's not normal. I'll be totally honest. Like Mason said, there's folks that are still looking, and there are folks that I know that are still looking from when the 2024 layoffs happened at Riot. And it's not to say that I have been a better person than those folks because it's not, because there's some great people that I'm very close with that are still.
I will say that.
You can say that. Yeah. I will absolutely not take that. Take that.
E-Man is a better person than everyone else who's laid off, and if they're unemployed right now, it's because they weren't as good as E-Man, and you heard it from E-Man.
Yes.
Hey, no, that is so not true. No, that's absolutely not true. Because there's some folks that I know that are going through a layoff right now that have mentored me, and that are still currently looking. And so like I'm very.
It's a weird time.
It's a weird time.
It's such a weird time.
Yeah. Very grateful, very lucky to have been in this scenario in the right place, right time for myself.
Yeah.
Just recently, like the Bungie layoffs that happened.
Yeah.
And like
literally
less than a week.
Yeah.
It's been a day. And yeah, like what I will say is when things like that happen, I think that the industry, for lack of a better word, comes together a little bit to try and help. Yeah. So like I know that literally within an hour or two of that layoff being announced, I already had a full list of every single member of audio that had been laid off from Bungie, as well as their current role and what they were working on, along with contact information, to basically be like, hey, here's everyone. If you have an opportunity, these are all people who are now available if you want to try and jump in immediately. Like, the community organizes on behalf of people in those types of crises. Like, the same thing happened when Epic had their layoffs, a few months ago. And, like, we managed to get a few of those people on our team And I imagine, we'll probably talk about this later. I think that there are probably going to be some similar things that happen because of the Bungie layoff. Of there are roles that we are currently filling that we're probably going to end up getting some Bungie talent for. Which, it's sad to see layoffs happen, but it's great to be in a position where you can help people at a moment where they really need it.
I hope to one day in the future. Like I started my first full-time job about a month ago, but like I want to.
Congratulations. Where are you at?
I'm at Light and Wonder, out in Reno.
Mm-hmm.
They do like slot machine games.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally one of the other SGDA officers actually. I'm on her team, so it's
Oh,
been
that's
good.
amazing.
And
Well,
like,
congratulations. Welcome to your first gig, bro. Like, welcome to
thank you.
industry.
It's really like I think it is telling about the game dev community though that like I grew up in the Bay Area. Tech does not have this like level of coming together when layoffs happen. It is a lot more like you have to fight for you have to fight for like everything like against each other. It's like that's not how it is in game dev.
Even the film industry, I don't feel like it's the same thing. Like, film and TV, um, you know, they're special in their own ways, and I love working in them. But, like, the games industry has a warmth to it that I just haven't really seen replicated basically anywhere else. And I think that, like, the thing that really gets me is, like, this isn't the right way to word it, but this is the closest way that I can put it. I think that the games industry, especially for those of us who are maybe of a slightly older generation, we all remember what it was like to grow up in a world where video games were intensely uncool, and to seek solace and community in that group despite that fact. Like, when I was growing up, Marvel comics were not cool. Like, video games were not cool. This was like a thing that nerds did that, like, no
Mhm.
one respected or appreciated. And so I think that that leads to a kind of processing of the people who go through that, of you know what it's like to be made othered because of your love for this, and you want to be inclusive. It's one of the things that I think that the games industry tends to be so actively welcoming of trying to bring people in, is because we all know what it's like to be left out.
I growing up in like the 2000s and watching anime, there's a lot of anime where I only know about what happens because of like fan subs or like AMVs
Mm-hmm.
because there was no way to officially watch
Yep.
it. So when I see like Demon Slayer selling out, I'm like, that's really cool.
It, dude, it blows my mind. When I was a kid, I remember that, like, the only way that, like, I could watch, like, Inuyasha was because my next door neighbor was, like, a neurologist who was, like, really into anime, and, like, he had, like, videos from Japan, and, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't on, like, any TV channels that we had access to. I grew up in, like, rural East Texas. We didn't, like, have access to this stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, I think I didn't have the internet actively until I was in, like, high school. Like, but
I think we'll do one more question from like the sheet, and then we have a couple of audience questions, and then
mhm.
time permitting, we can come back to this. But what advice would you give to your past self when you're trying to get that first job and and get into your first studio?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, one is definitely don't give up because it certainly is going to be a challenge.
It's gonna take a while.
It's going to take a while. That's probably like the number one thing is just be patient, right? Just understand where you are, and be ready to improve upon that, right? Just look at everything through a growth mindset. Um, and I think that would have set me in a much smoother path earlier, if that makes sense. Because I went to the University of Laverne, so I was big fish, small pond over there, right? As soon as I left that, I was like, oh my god, these are people that have been doing this for ages. They're way better than I am. They actually had a game audio or like an audio production course that they got to take. So like just going in it with that attitude of like, hey, I can do this. I'm gonna have to work my butt off to figure it out, but do that as part of a community.
Mm-hmm.
That'll help a lot. That's probably
I,
like the one thing for me.
I think that as much as possible, because especially for USC students, like, a lot of you have had to like fight forever to get to where you are right now because you're in a prestigious program and you had to accomplish a lot to even get in, and it's hard to get through, and you've had to work really hard, and you've learned a lot. But I would challenge you as much as possible to humble yourself and take joy in realizing that you know nothing. Like, you are at the start of your career. There are so many millions of things that you just haven't even had the opportunity to get exposed to, not for any lack of trying or any lack of effort. And I would say, have the type of attitude where you look at that mountain of things that you don't know, and that is exciting to you because it means that there is so much more that you're going to get to experience and grow on, and look forward to that. If you have that type of mindset, you will make it long term. Like, you have to have that kind of attitude.
I really want to piggyback off of that because I actually started in the industry wanting to do music composition primarily, and it wasn't.
And then I took his job.
Yeah, Mason
as
actually.
Yeah.
Like every single person's like, no, actually, Mason's the one. But I mean, that's kind of
It was a hair
semi-true.
thing. It was a hair thing, mostly.
Mostly. But no, to that point, it's like I pivoted from sound design or from music to sound design because I felt like I wanted to learn more about sound design rather than music. I found more enjoyment in learning about sound effects than I was what I went to school for, right? So don't be afraid to pivot if you have that opportunity because like you might be knowing exactly where you want to go now, and then a few years down the line you're like, wait, actually I enjoy this pathway better, and be ready to do that, right? And like again, humble yourself, like, okay, now I know nothing about this pathway, but how can I take the skills that I had and cater that over?
The statistic, and I'm getting the stat wrong, so someone can look it up later and get the exact correct year on this, but the average career lasts, I think, 7 to 10 years, something like that, and then people decide to get a new job and pivot. Statistically speaking, you are going to change careers multiple times, and maybe that's going to be something relatively simple from like, oh, I'm going to go from being a composer to being a sound designer. Maybe it's, I'm going to go from being in game development to being a movie maker. Maybe it's going to be from game development to being an accountant. Like, it could be any number of different things, but statistically speaking, there are always going to be fields that you know nothing about that one day you are going to become a part of. And that's okay. That's growth. Frankly, that's what technology is like. You know, so much of what defines our day-to-day life now didn't exist when we were studying. Like, it just wasn't even, like, on the radar.
Like, I think about like the fact that I have an iPhone. I'm like, I was using like a flip phone in like middle school, and that was like my cousin who's like much younger will be like, oh yeah, like I brought my phone to school, and I'm like, really? You were allowed to do that?
My first iPhone was senior year Christmas of high school. Like, it was literally right before college, basically.
Well, I think those are great answers. We have a couple of audience questions, one of which is very career related, and the other which is kind of a funny question for you, Mace. But for the career related question from Megna, who is an SGDA officer, as a producer, audio is a bit of an enigma as they're working, as like it works differently on many games. How can a producer best support an audio designer and an audio team in general?
Do you want to start?
I feel like you've got the most hand in hand on this, but I'll just piggyback off of it. But I have thoughts.
Communication. So I want to be super, super clear. My personal philosophy, a producer's job, yes, you are there to shepherd things along and make sure that they happen and maintain a budget and schedule and a timeline. But mostly your job is to allow the people who are crafting the thing, the creatives who are at your disposal, you are there to unblock them. You're there to make their lives easier and move things forward. So I would always encourage you, for any discipline, like, if you are a producer, don't look at the team you are producing as, these are my automatons, this is my schedule, the robot must work faster. Like, look at it instead as, these are the artists that I am shepherding, and they're trying to create something beautiful. How can I give them the tools to do that in a way that keeps us on the train tracks? Like, what can I do to get them the time they need or to get them the resources they need? Like, how can I unblock their path? This is always communication. And what I would tell you is a good producer becomes technical ultimately. Like, I would say that a good producer is not someone who understands, how to assign Jira tasks and knows how to develop, like, a schedule and a work back. A good producer is going to take the time to talk to their sound designers and be like, so, like, when you're talking about, like, interactive audio and you guys keep mentioning Wise and my engineers keep breaking out in cold sweats every time you talk about, like, Wise Perforce integration, like, why is that? Like, what's going on there? Like, can you tell me about this stuff? A good producer ultimately learns about the disciplines they are producing, and that's part of what makes it more possible to produce that material.
Yeah, to really hammer the nail here, it's make sure you're communicating with that team, right? Just make sure you're asking the questions and you're sitting and listening, because there are producers out there that'll just be like, oh, this is a problem, okay, well, here's how we're gonna fix it, and it has nothing to do with the problem at all, right? Like, so like making sure you understand what the problem is for the audio team, and that takes a lot of dedication to sit down and talk to them, be like, hey, what's actually blocking you? Why do you guys feel crunched if you do at all? What can we do to alleviate that? And most of the time can we, one, scale back, or two, can we get the information a lot earlier that we need to actually find this and make this successful, right? So there's a level of like learning, like Mason said, what the craft is and what the requirements of that team are. And most of that, to be honest, as a producer, is going to be, can I give visibility to audio sooner than the last possible minute, which is usually when we get that information, right? Because we're used to being in the tail end of the pipeline. It's changing, the perception is shifting. We're used to that, but we don't necessarily like it, if that makes sense, right? Because it's more collaborative if we can be a part of that and flag the things that are going to be issues much earlier on.
The thing that you have to be aware of as well, if you're ever producing for audio, because we are at the very tail of things, we're literally at the end of the tail, any change upstream whips the tail, and that can mean a much more drastic change to us than it might be to someone else. So you go in for, like, if you're producing a cinematic and you're working on the edit and they go, let's just cut like 5 frames here. This needs to go a little bit tighter. Okay, for the editor, that's a pretty easy change. It takes them like 2 seconds. Your composer, everything that they just did no longer aligns. They're now having to figure out, okay, is this like a tempo shift thing? Is this like, do I need to like cut something and rewrite this section? Like, it can be an entirely different problem for a tiny solution. And if you are a team, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to do this 300 times in a row, then like you're going to lock that composer on this project as their main problem for like a month at a time for something that should take them a few hours.
Yeah.
You have to think about like the forward like consequences of the changes that get implemented further in the pipeline. And audio is often susceptible to all of it.
I remember when we were working on Donuts and we were working with some of our external composers that Mason, you helped us get. I was like, oh, like I was like, can you get some like, a couple of months? And the guy was like, oh, thank you. Because like all my other projects are like week-long deadlines. And I was like, what?
Oh, yeah.
What is happening?
We're used to being super, super fast in audio.
I was like, okay, this is good to know for the future. I will get that information to you as soon as I can so that you don't have to worry about this.
What was the other question you mentioned?
Oh, yes. Mason, this one is for you. Megna saw that you got your start on Ruby. How did that happen? She said that it was a big part of her teenage years, and it was also a big part of my teenage years. I remember watching that trailer and being so hyped.
When I was in college, the very first trailer came out, and my best friend at the time showed me the trailer, and I was a college student. I didn't know that much music production, but I was learning it. And he's like, yo, have you heard this thing? Showed me the trailer. I was like, oh, this is sick. He's like, by the way, all the drums in it, they're fake. And I was like, what? But it sounds so real. What? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, no, this is all like programmed sequence drums. Like it could be that good. I was like, oh my God. This doesn't sound like a drum machine at all. Holy shit. Is it possible to learn this? And he's like, not from a Jedi, but the guy who wrote the music is actually faculty at Berkeley, which is where I was studying. you could like ask him how he did it. And so, welcome back.
Yeah,
I was like, E-Man appears to have left the scene.
Yeah, I know.
The camera is
Stage left.
unsure. Yeah, the camera is unsure of what to do about E-Man.
there you go.
But yeah, like I reached out to him, and he was faculty, and I wasn't in any of his classes, but I was like, hey, can I just come to your office hour and ask some questions about drums? He's like, yeah, sure, whatever, come down. I felt like I learned more in that office hour than I was learning in most of my classes. So I committed to just showing up at his office hour every single week until I felt like I'd learned what I could. I proceeded to show up at Jeff Williams' office hour every week for 2 years until I graduated. And we built up a rapport, and eventually he asked me to do some stuff because he realized I was a good cellist, and I played a show for him, and then I recorded some stuff for him, and I arranged some stuff for him, and eventually I became his assistant, and then I started writing for him.
Really cool. So Jeff Williams was a teacher at Berkeley
Yeah.
at the time. Okay, I actually didn't know that.
And his daughter, Casey Williams, who sings all the music, is the lead singer of my band. I still work with Casey all the time.
That's
She's
awesome.
traveling right now, right?
Yeah, she came back from her European tour yesterday.
Oh, dang. Whew.
And then we have a studio session together on Tuesday night, actually,
Nice.
for Thing.
Mm-hmm.
For the fun
for
one.
the thing, yeah.
For the fun one.
The thing that I like the ambiguity.
Yeah. Video games is full of NDAs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. I've signed so many NDAs, and I'm like, I'd love to talk to you about what I'm doing. I literally cannot.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't think that I've given away anything in this panel so far. I've been safe.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty. I haven't heard anything that I was like, I didn't know about that, other than like Jeff Williams being a professor at Berkeley, which was in the past.
Well, that was under NDA too, so yeah.
I understand.
No, he's retired at this point. He's no longer faculty, but yeah, he was my first mentor, really. Well, my first college mentor, I would say. I feel like I had other mentors growing up, but
I think we're coming up on time. So, is there any advice that you'd like to kind of give to students? Anything that you'd like to shout out? Anything? The floor is yours.
Stay in school. Wear a sweater. Make good choices. No,
wash your hands regularly. Stretch. Hip flexors. They'll get you every time.
I actually pulled my hip the other day.
Oh no!
But
It's the real advice.
I know,
It's the
it
actual
really is.
stuff.
As you get older, you're gonna have to stretch more.
There isn't a joke here. That is real.
It's
Yeah.
just real.
But just in general, honestly, again, having that attitude of like growth mindset is probably going to be a big part of it. And don't be afraid to ask questions. You're always going to feel like you should not always should, because there's a level of like expertise you should have at some points, but like you should always feel okay asking questions, and you should always feel ready to do that, and that should always be a part of wherever you go.
The way that I usually articulate that one as a manager is that a healthy attitude is to presume that you are in the fog of war, and that there are things that you don't see or that you don't understand that are informing why everyone else is behaving the way they are. I assume by default, like, if someone says something crazy or stupid or whatever, I don't go, wow, you're crazy or stupid. I go, wow, they probably know something that I don't know that's informing why they are behaving in a way that I consider irrational. I should start asking questions so that I understand what their viewpoint is. And some people are crazy, but most of them probably aren't, frankly. Like, there's usually a pretty good explanation for, like, everything. And if you just take the moment to learn it, then you will make better, more well-informed decisions.
That's just good life advice in general, honestly.
Yeah.
It is. I'm full of it. I'm also just full of it. If I could give one piece of advice, I think
One piece. Sorry.
Please.
I'll leave it all in one piece. If I could just give a piece, I've worked on One Piece, but if I could give a piece of advice to folks in general, I would say that, like, one of the big challenges that your generation faces that just wasn't the same for our generation is the whole social media thing. And, like, understand that by and large, like, you know that social media is bullshit, but that doesn't mean that it feels any less real when you're, like, anxious and, like, uncertain about the future. You are comparing 1,000 people on the best day of their life to every real world bullshit experience you've ever had. You are comparing the peak of their mountain to the trough of your valley, and you are going to lose that comparison every single time. People are not out here talking about every month that they had trouble making rent, every time that they had an awkward conversation with their significant other and they don't know how to fix it properly, every time that like their parents said something that like changed your perception of them. Like, no one's online talking about that stuff, so you are not perceiving that everyone else is also a fully 3D formed individual just like you, whose lives suck in the same types of ways that your life might suck. And we're all pushing through it despite those things, so please give yourself grace. Like, give yourself patience, give yourself the ability to fail, give yourself the ability to, like, try again, and understand that it's not always going to be easy, and it never was for anyone else.
I think that's a very like very astute and very like real thing to hear. Just like,
It's almost like I'm a professor.
yeah, I know, right?
Crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like telling how we met.
Who let that
Awesome.
happen?
Right? Genuinely crazy behavior.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming by for our audio panel. This was really, really insightful, really helpful. Yeah, we have our final showcase for the day coming up. So thank you for coming by to speak with us, and we will see you around.
Adios, y'all.
Adios.
Cheers.